Well, all right, let's go ahead and get started. You are registered with the Z-Prime webinar today, Wednesday. We're starting this afternoon or morning, depending on your location. My name is Andrew Johnston, and I'm the president of Z-Prime's Energy Thought Summit. I'll be the moderator for today's event. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'd like to welcome you to this webinar entitled Laying the Groundwork for the Utility of the Future, which is proudly sponsored by ComEd. Today, we have some fantastic folks from ComEd sharing some insight about the utility of the future. We'll be talking about this bold new vision for the utility of the future, along with how the team at ComEd use technologies to feed into business models, policies, and the premier customer experience of the future. And to do that, we're going to have great speakers joining us from ComEd. The first one is going to be Isaac Akridge, and followed by Joe Zvahula, followed by Brian Hurst. Now, I'm going to kick off myself. As I mentioned, I'm Andrew Johnston. I'm the president of Energy Thought Summit. We've brought together this webinar to really focus on utility of the future because it feeds so much into the main theme of what ETS 16 is about. And as you can see on this slide here, ETS 16 or ETS16.com is where we're going to be convening all of the great minds, institutions, and doers in the energy space to discuss how to transform the chaos of our current not only energy market, but energy landscape. Now, very few utilities have proactively led in the way that ComEd has, and so we decided to really dedicate this webinar to look at not only the big picture, but with the feet on the ground and vision with feet on the ground of what's happening at ComEd. ETS 16 is going to be March 29th to 31st. We have 14 utility CEOs from 3 continents speaking. We have the father of the internet, Vint Cerf, the father of Ethernet, Bob Metcalf, the Cryosphere Lab of NASA's chief scientist, Dr. Thomas Wagner, and loads of other great speakers, including the Federal Reserve Bank. The list goes on and on. We couldn't have done this call without our partnership with ComEd. We thank ComEd for sharing this guidance and counsel to our audience and our community. Without further ado, I'm going to allow Isaac Akridge to kick this off. This call is, again, about the utility of the future. If you are having any difficulty with sound, you can dial the toll number 415-655-0001, and the access code will link up if you click on the event info at the top left of the webinar event center. So without further ado, I'm going to make Isaac Akridge from ComEd the presenter, and he will begin sharing about the utility of the future.
Thanks, Andrew. Again, my name is Isaac Akridge, Vice President of Regulatory Projects for ComEd. I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of share with you the intent of our webinar, and that's to really offer insights into how we're thinking about preparing not only ourselves, but also our customer base for industry changes that we expect to happen in the next 5 to 10 years and beyond. And I'm sure that all of you that are on the phone will agree that there's certainly a challenge in building long-term strategy amid this recognizable uncertainty that we have moving forward. By no means do we think that we have a perfect plan, but we do want to share with you the way that we're thinking about the future moving forward from a ComEd perspective. So let's just jump right in. Move to the next slide. Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about ComEd. So ComEd is one of 3 energy delivery utility operating companies within the Exelon Corporation. Exelon also has generation and competitive energy sales through Exelon Generation and Constellation. More specific to ComEd, we're headquartered out of Chicago, Illinois. We've been serving customers in the northern 1/3 of Illinois for over 100 years. Today, we provide electric service delivery to about 4 million customers across a little more than 11,000 square miles. Our service territory is pretty diverse, ranging from densely populated areas in metropolitan Chicago to rural areas in the far south and the far west of our service territory. And within that same footprint, we have a pretty diverse customer base as well. We serve about 70% of the Illinois population. That includes roughly 2 million customers in the city of Chicago, more than 400 municipalities, home to about 30 Fortune 500 corporate headquarters, 16,000 manufacturing business, and countless hospitals and databases. So just to give you a feel for the diversity of our customer base. We have about 6,000 employees, both management making up about a third, and the remaining are craft employees. In terms of our delivery infrastructure, our system is fairly balanced between having an overhead and underground configuration. One of the things I would highlight is we do construct and maintain the second largest underground network in the United States. So that's just to give you a feel about the ComEd profile. As we start to think about the utility of the future within ComEd, although there are many industry trends that are out there, there are three that have really forced us to reevaluate many aspects of our business, and I'll share those with you briefly. The first one is increasing environmental consciousness. So we understand that we're in a culture where customers want to support more energy efficiency and conservation, and that'll further lead to the forecast of flat and declining loads for the foreseeable future. If you think about today, offering more energy efficiency doesn't exactly line up with the regulatory recovery models that are based on kilowatt-hour sales. So this trend alone will require utilities to kind of reevaluate the rate design and how to address energy efficiency. The second trend that we're recognizing is that customers' expectations are changing in a number of ways. They'll want more control, more choice of their energy experience. So this whole notion of the previous one-size-fits-all will have to be altered moving forward, and altered in a way that allows simple and seamless choices for customers to save money, to be more environmentally conscious, or to be more green, and in some cases, produce power themselves and sell it back to the grid. So you can imagine the complexity that comes along with more two-way power flows and some of the operational challenges that we'll have to address there. I think the second component of customers' expectation changing also includes and ties back to the growing digital economy. So our customers, and very similar to others, really have no tolerances for outages of any kind. And this will require not only ComEd, but other utilities to continue to address the aging infrastructure, look at ways to mitigate volatile weather patterns, concerns about physical and cybersecurity, but will force us to reevaluate not only our existing investment portfolios, but also look at new technologies that will support increased reliability and resiliency. And the final trend we're all connected to is emerging technology. So solar is increasing. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. There's growing interest in energy storage, microgrid technology, and electric vehicles. But the point is that customers will want something from the utility in the future that's very different than what we provided before, and we believe these trends will lead to a future that's clean, lean, custom, reliable, and secure as well. Moving to the next slide. So how is ComEd prepared to respond? And our response is really looking at making a shift, and that shift includes moving from, I think I've advanced one too many slides. Okay, here we go. That includes making a shift that moves from what we considered a predominantly load-serving world today to one that's more service-based. So today, you'll see that most of the generation is large-scale or centralized generation pushed across our transmission and delivery system to our end user. Moving forward, we expect that there's going to be new technologies or more technologies connected to the grid. So more solar, more electric vehicles, more energy storage, more technologies like microgrids. And that means that there'll be a shift from the grid of the day that utilities design, own, and operate, and includes our own equipment, to one that starts to include distributed generation and other devices of all sizes and capabilities that are now also owned by the customer and connected to the grid. And that means that we'll play a central role moving forward, meaning utilities of the future and ComEd will play a central role moving forward, integrating these technologies into the grid. And likewise, from the shift to being more service-based, there will be new products and services that we'll look to offer as well. Those products and services that allow customers more choices around being environmentally conscious, perhaps self-generating, making better decisions around their energy choices. The reality is some of the customers will rely on technology by themselves. The others will rely on the utility to support their growing and evolving needs moving forward. We believe that there's an opportunity through the utility of the future to add value in three networks that we believe we have access to. And if you work your way from the bottom of the slide forward, the physical network, the poles and wires, transformers, and other physical assets that will continue to address the aging infrastructure, but we'll also look at piloting new technologies that will allow us to prove reliability and resiliency. So the physical network is the first network we have access to. Through investments in our physical network and with our smart grid, we've also created what we consider or call our digital network. So that's a digital communication system that allows us to interact with our equipment and enable the smart grid efficiencies there. But through this network, we'll look at also seeking opportunities to add value to our customers and our communities that go beyond just simply delivering energy. It could include examples like using that communication network to allow access to smart streetlights to our municipal customers. But we'll continue to look at our digital network to look at how can we have more impactful interactions with our municipal and our other customers. And the last network that we have access to that we want to leverage as well is the social network. So we have an advantage that we've got a connection point into the homes or the businesses of all of our 3.8 million customers. And today our interactions include reading the meters and addressing their needs to our care center and billing for the monthly services. But moving forward with the evolving customer needs, we believe that there's an opportunity to also use the social network and these interactions to distribute new products and services to our customers. And it's through the social network that we'll look at increasing customer to utility interactions and ultimately customer to customer interactions as well. Our strategy and our plan that we're laying out really includes many parts of our business. We've had a team of folks from various business units, whether it be regulatory, our grid operations, our customer operations and communications group. But this team has been working to evaluate options for the future for about a year now. And we've evaluated options for managing the integrated grid that I talked about earlier, leveraging market research to better understand our customers and what their future needs are. We continue to monitor activity in other jurisdictions to kind of understand how decisions elsewhere may impact our strategy and our thinking moving forward. And I think the key aspect of our strategy is we want to do the things that preserve our optionality for providing future value for our customers moving forward. And over time, that will include pursuing cost recovery assurances for future investments, seeking a rate design that addresses net metering and maintains line of sight to affordability. But it also includes mechanisms to hold us accountable to deliver exactly the value that we pledge to our customers as we think about building this future energy state. In addition to the team that we have actively working, this spring we've introduced some legislation. We entitled that legislation the Future Energy Plan. It looks to build on the foundation that we've set with our smart grid work and to unlock additional value for our customers. And although I won't go into detail, the key elements include addressing the rate design, increasing access to renewables, piloting new technologies, and making provisions to increase energy efficiency. So really a measure in supporting all of those things that we believe our customers will want through this future energy state. In short, this is a next step beyond the work that we're doing around the smart grid and modernizing our grid into moving toward that clean, lean, reliable, custom and secure energy future we believe our customers will want. At this point, I'm going to transition to my colleague, Vice President, Engineering and Smart Grid, Joe Svahula.
But before we go forward, I'd like to take one step back and talk about the legislation that's in place today that's gotten us to where we're at, and that's the Energy Infrastructure Modernization Act. So we are in the 5th year and kind of the final year of the major infrastructure build. This was a $2.6 billion build-out, 2 primary components, about half for infrastructure, kind of the foundational build needed to get our grid ready for the future, and then another half for the smart grid investments, the digitization of our network, which enables deeper penetration of renewables and new customer resources. It provided us a lot of certainty. Our shareholders, obviously, to make a big investment, want to know that they're going to recover their costs. So it was a great partnership with the legislature, our customers, that a trust, if you will, that if we're going to build it, we would provide benefits. The benefits are stacking up. 2013, 14, 15 were the 3 most reliable years in the history of our 100-year-old company. We added thousands of jobs, and we did what utilities don't often do. We went to Springfield last year and we asked for a $50 million rate decrease. So a lot of the capital investment is driving expenses and cost out of the business. So on the next slide, I like that headline, our $2.6 billion grid infrastructure is getting the grid to fighting weight. So we've recovered quite a bit, and we're in great shape now, and it puts us in a position to start to advance pilots. And I won't take you through all of those, but let's talk a little about microgrids. So we believe that utilities are uniquely positioned to play in public purpose microgrid space. And that's when I say public purpose, I mean lots of customers benefit. And we began the journey with our engineers who created a pretty complex metric. And they broke our service territory into some 13,000 square miles, pixels if you will, and put a whole bunch of work into that with stuff like the load in the area, the load growth, the age of equipment, and came up with a map we honestly don't like to show because it is some areas of vulnerability and places that the system needs some reinforcement. We then met with federal, state, county, city officials, and we did a little bit of an intersection of where critical facilities are. We are encouraged by them to think not in terms of buildings, but capabilities. Capabilities meaning water, communications, fuel. And that resulted in 6 microgrids that we'd like to build. The first is Chicago Heights. That's a water treatment plant and a sewage plant. The Aurora FAA headquarters, which made headlines, national headlines, a little more than a year ago when somebody cut a bunch of wires and started a fire. The Illinois Medical District, a very critical place in just west of the Chicago downtown area with 4 major hospitals. A government complex in DuPage. One of the lessons learned from talking with officials, it's that it's important government is up and running and functional in times of crisis. The Rockford Airport, and then Bronzeville, which I'll get to in a second. Also, you'll see grid analytics being highlighted there. We're doing a lot of work now. Years ago, we got essentially 1 customer data point a month in the form of usage of a meter, so 12 data points in a year. We get hundreds of data points every day from every customer. So stuff you can start to do, you can measure voltage sags. We're starting to do analytics on things like perhaps a tree is brushing against a conductor and trying to identify outages and problems before they result in outages with our customer. Under people, human capital, terribly important to us. We have built our second training center, 50,000 square feet in Chicago indoor, 250,000 feet outdoor. So it's allowing us to get the utility worker of the future up to speed. I would comment in parallel, our technical folks, we try to grow our ecosystem here. We work very aggressively with the local universities, with the national labs. And I will tell you a lot of the engineers coming out to work for us today have had a chance to work on things like microgrids at IIT. When I went to school, it was about resistors and capacitors, and obviously the world has changed quite a bit. And then lastly, we're venturing into smart grid and, smart cities, smart communities, items like water meters and smart street lights, even gas meters. So we're starting to find out where else we can leverage the network. So our goal is to tie all of this together in what we're calling the Bronzeville Community of the Future. So on the left, we start with a little picture of Bronzeville and a descriptor below, but it's a wonderful cross-section of Chicago, very diverse community. It is home to the Illinois Institute of Technology, which has about a 12-megawatt microgrid today. The Chicago Police Headquarters, there's some very power quality sensitive load in the College of Optometry. So we think a great place to build this microgrid to venture out into the community. So we are nearing the ends of our first grant. By the end of this year, we will have built a controller, partnered up with Argonne, IIT, and others to cluster our microgrid with IIT. We recently announced that we were an award winner for another grant called SHINES, and SHINES is basically integrating grid-scale storage and grid-scale solar. We plan to do that within the boundaries of this microgrid. And then lastly, as you move to the right, you start to see all of the technologies. And what we want to do is really put all of this to bear in one location, and that's Bronzeville. And as we talk about the Internet of Things, devices are going to increasingly need to talk to devices, and we're going to need to move the intelligence out to the edge of the grid. We're not going to be able to deal with all the data from a central location. I'll give you just one quick example to highlight this. There's some line sensors that are available to us now, and we can hang those sensors on the overhead, and some utilities are having success seeing potential cable faults, some of the pre-fault conditions. They're seeing the other example I mentioned with trees brushing against wires. So that's the holy grail for us, if we can determine an outage before it happens and take preventive action. Those 3 devices bring back as much data as 1 million AMI meters. So what you need to do is work the algorithms and put the intelligence into the device and report back by exception. So we want to work a lot of this, drive towards the Internet of Things. You can see lists that you can read through technology we plan to deploy. What emerges from the middle is that the consumer not only consumes electricity, starts to produce, hence the term prosumer. And we want to create a distribution system operator, a DSO, kind of creating the platform, the marketplace, where customers can interact with the utility in a transactive way. I would mention that the most important element of this activity is getting the customer front and center in what we're trying to do. We went out to the community. We announced this with all kinds of community stakeholders, and we're going to go work with them, talk to them about what it is we can do together. And that's a perfect transition to Brian Hurst, who's going to talk to us about the customer.
Great, thanks a lot, Joe. And as we heard Isaac really kind of tee up the overall context, and you certainly heard the big, strong customer theme there, and really focusing on our customers throughout this journey, as we've had for quite a while. Joe really helped set the context for, as you can imagine, the key drivers for what customers really care about as we think about all of our customers that we serve. The first slide I'd like to go into is just to give you a little bit of a background on our Premier Customer Experience journey. So kind of well before we really got the official Smart Grid Advanced investments underway in the smart meter, we started on a journey to improve our customer experience. And I'll tell you, my past life was involved being a consultant, traveling all over the U.S. and working with many utilities. And over the years, I always watched PPL and Salt River Project and APS and Mid-American Energy, who always worked hard to get to first quartile, but were able to maintain it. And every time I flew back home into Chicago, I continued to monitor customer satisfaction, and we were in last place. So I was really excited, and it's a privilege for me to talk about this slide, because in 2012, Ernst & Young, who was the firm I was with as a customer lead, was asked to help ComEd develop a Premier Customer Experience roadmap. And I'll tell you, back in 2012, if you look at the chart here, it's always good to have a chart like this that moves up. But I'll tell you, in 2012, we were 27 points behind second to last. So you can imagine, it's very tough to see a path forward. We operated our customer operations in a very linear view of the world. We didn't really appreciate the dynamic model of doing things in credit and collections that could impact the call center impacting revenue management or field activities. So as a result of this objective, our senior leadership team, Ann Parmajori and Val and Ron Donovan and others said, let's drive towards a first quartile North Star objective. At the same time, obviously, we got to drive to first quartile performance objectives to move along the way. But really important in this journey is it couldn't be another project where you implement something, you measure the results, and then you see yourself slide backwards over time. We had to create an intentional culture that will allow us to sustain Premier Customer Experience. And I'll tell you, in the beginning of the project, we really felt like, we always thought about this in terms of, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that Premier Customer Experience is really only second to safety. And if you look at where we're at as an organization, I think we really achieved that. And then the other point along the way here is really setting the foundation for us to improve customer experience, improve customer satisfaction, and build the right, if you will, to make more investments in these strategic areas like smart grid and smart meters. And then really part of this is also to shore up the core, so to speak. We had to get our operations in order on the customer side to be set up well for this process. You can see along the way there's some images here. I think some key points that really helped us move the needle along the way include focusing on this concept of customer journeys. In the process of the project, we developed a 65 list of initiatives pipeline, but how do you prioritize those customer stat projects? We developed here at ComEd a customer stat estimate tool that allowed us to really focus on the right initiatives. One of those initiatives was our bill redesign. You can kind of see it on the slide here at the J.D. Power 2013-610 mark. It was a really innovative project. We tend to, historically as utilities, think about things in the way we the way we operate within the utility. We asked our customers for input, but we also engaged a whole network of folks out there via crowdsourcing to come up with the right design for the future that would, to make it simpler for our customers. And our CSAT tool, I think, had forecasted about a 15-point lift. After chatting with J.D. Powers, I think we came somewhere around a 17-point lift that could be attributed to the bill redesign. So that all set us up in a great position for the smart meter investments. One point in terms of some of the impacts so far with smart meters, in measuring J.D. Power CSAT scores, both with customers that have a meter, smart meter, and customers without, what we're seeing is about a 40 to 50-point improvement in customer satisfaction. That's attributed to our team that's doing a fantastic job of getting ahead of experience before we deploy the meters, but also is showing the value of the meters going forward. So with that, I'll flip to the next slide. So in the context of driving towards first quartile, and also recognize that everybody else in our segment, we're also focusing on the same thing. And yes, at some point down the road, we'll look to our friends out in Des Moines and Davenport, Iowa, who have the first quartile spot and say we join you. But we also are, as Isaac alluded to, things are moving very, very fast as an industry. We're essentially becoming digital overall. As a matter of fact, I mean, if I think about my kids, my son Charlie is 8 and Caroline 6, their first language is digital. They started with an iPad. We have the millennials that will soon, comprise about 50% of the world population. So there's this fast-moving pace, and there's plenty of examples in this chart here, and we're not going to go through it in detail. It's too much before lunch, I recognize. But if you look at this chart here, what it does tell is it tells the story of folks that made the pivot and those that did not, right? We think about Blockbuster from a bricks and mortar versus Netflix. We think about Uber and the disruption. And in our own industry, as we know, we're seeing lots of disruption. Disruption in a good way that's forcing us to become much more agile. A couple fun facts here. Mobile devices, right, are comprising about 50% of e-commerce traffic. We have about 217 new users connected to the mobile web every minute. 39% of the worldwide web penetration will occur soon. About every second, 2 new users join LinkedIn. And what's really interesting is LinkedIn lowered the subscription age to age 13. So lots of young startup entrepreneurs out there starting to use LinkedIn to network. And then if you really want to set the message about how fast things are moving, if you look at the worldwide population and you add in social and digital into the mix, and you looked at the number of users vis-a-vis the number of people within that area, you'd quickly find out that you kind of rank it, that Facebook would be number 1, then China number 2, India number 3, and you work down the list, you'd find Google number 6, LinkedIn, and then the U.S. at 8. So, for all of my utility peers out there, if you need data points to take back to really reinforce the importance here, it's really important to keep that in mind. To kind of wrap up this slide, the net on this slide is we, as an internal team, need to continue to think about the digital channels, and we've done that in our utility future strategy. If you can flip the next slide, please. So, shifting demographics, right? So things are moving very, very fast. Our customers' experiences are being shaped by other industries. Multiple channels are out there for all classifications of our customer, but the demographics are shifting. We today are dealing with a fundamentally different customers when we think about the millennials and their adoption of technology. I mean, a great example of that is I saw a survey where 53% of millennials would rather lose their sense of smell than technology. So what does that mean for us as a utility? Are we building the right channels, and are we deploying new features into the digital channels, whether it's a traditional My Account self-service online or it's a social channel? How are we reacting to that? Another surprise is that, I think maybe it's a little bit up for debate, but it suggests that there's more people out there that have more mobile devices than toothbrushes throughout the world. So, kind of a little bit scary, but certainly it's an interesting data point. Grandparents are the fastest growing segment on Twitter. So some of our old assumptions from a utility perspective about how we cater to our customers tell us that they're expecting service along multiple channels. Last data point here I think is always a fun one is, I think back in 2000 they suggested that the average attention span was about 12 seconds. And here we are in today's day and age when they now suggest that the average attention span for adults is about 12 seconds. And I know many of you are multitasking right now on this call. And the goldfish, by the way, they estimate around 9 seconds. So goldfish actually have a speed. So we've got to be there for our customers in the moment where they're at and support them along the way. So to kind of wrap up how we are thinking about the utility future for us, and then on this next slide here, our customer strategy. is that, and we're trying to advance the slide here, it's a little bit slow for the folks on the phone. There we go. So it's really important that Isaac talked about thinking about our customers as individuals. Our old process of looking at residential, small, medium business, and C&I is still important in terms of the way we operate, but the individual needs of our customers need to be addressed, and we need to kind of think about how we enable our strategy to support those key objectives. And really the way I and our team thinks about the customer side of this strategy is a combination of, what's the innovation pipeline that's allowing us to think about new programs and capabilities to bring to our customers, the strategic assets and capabilities, and then the program and pilot. So I think about the strategic assets and capabilities as kind of like the operating system, right? And then the program and pilots become the app store. We really need to get the operating system right, and fortunately, we have folks like Joe, who just shared with us the investments we're making in the grid. We have our other leaders driving high performance in our smart meter deployment. That's really setting us up for this process. And in terms of the innovation pipeline, there's some really exciting things that I think our overall program is allowing us to support, and that includes the Smart Grid Exchange, where it allows us a way to launch products and services, allowing our customers to get the most out of smart grid investments. So, we work very closely with all of our stakeholders to bring ideas to the table. The Energy Foundry is really an interesting outcome of our EIMA program, and that was really spawned by the need to continue to support startups and like-minded individuals that are focusing on the energy economy, particularly in Illinois. So both ComEd and Ameren are sponsors in terms of funding for that, and from a ComEd perspective, we hold residency in this energy foundry, and it's led up by Jason Bloomberg and his team that are very VC-oriented and minded in terms of how we look at startups. So we're helping a lot of startups out there look for ways to leverage our network and our infrastructure to help bring additional jobs and hopefully future companies to Illinois and our digital economy. And then the last couple examples of how we foster our innovation pipeline are around the voice of the customer employee. You get fantastic ideas from the frontline employees. They often know most what's going on. The voice of our customer continues to be in the forefront. But also, we're also fortunate that we can do a champion-challenger model with our sister utilities at PECO and BGE. So we tend to let them drive a particular initiative. We learn from that, and we determine if it's an appropriate initiative to deploy across Exelon utilities. A couple points on the middle layer here. The middle layer is first of all, it's allowing us from a customer standpoint to build off the smart grid, the smart meter investments. Joe talked about our smart grid analytics capabilities, and we're doing the same thing from a customer standpoint. Across Exelon utilities, we have a 5-domain view around analytics: smart energy services, customer experience, grid analytics, as Joe mentioned, AMI, and then also business operations. Our team is, on the customer side, really focused on taking advantage of all this data now and looking for new ways to help the operation. One simple example I think that is good is we think about a call center operations. You talk to the operations, they often know where the calls are coming from, but we don't look at it that way. We often don't get a lot of opportunities to think about the customers that are calling us and why they're calling us. We have good indication, but we're often running the business. So what we're doing is using new visualization techniques to show the call center the concentrations of calls, where they're at by customer type, very similar to what we do on outage management with tools like iFactor. Is bringing new insights to how we can potentially support our customers and really triage, whether it's bringing out capabilities to their doorstep to help them out. And then the digital channels, as I alluded to earlier. So as I kind of wrap up this section here, we essentially have that operating system that I mentioned earlier. We now have the program and pilots, and what are we doing to take advantage of these innovations and pull them forward? We, from a program and pilot perspective, what we've been doing there is building on those investments. We started our peak time savings pilot and have deployed that now. We're coming up on our second summer, and we already have about 100,000 customers enrolled. We have our Green Button Connect program that was launched and is available to our business customers, with our residential customers soon to be able to take advantage of that data. Really opens up doors for third parties to allow their customers to get the most of AMI data and our customers as well. we also think about creative programs like Bring Your Own Thermostat. We want to be that connective tissue, if you will, between the customer's needs, the investments we've made, and this app store, if you will, of programs and pilots, and how do we bring them to the customers in the right way. So Bring Your Own Thermostat is a great example. Continue focus on home energy management with tools and applications like Digitally, and allowing our customers to get more information from that. And then I think Joe also teed it up well in the previous section, as well as Isaac, about how do we give our customers more choice and control. The energy market is pretty cluttered. There's a lot going on, and frankly, as a customer, how do you make the right decisions? On our energy efficiency programs, we've had fantastic success with our team deploying energy efficiency programs, but how do you make the rebate process really convenient? How do we bring the right Angie's List, if you will, of options to our customers via an energy marketplace? So things like an energy marketplace where we can help our customers kind of connect between the needs of reducing their use, the needs to reduce their costs with rebates and programs, and also help them make informed decisions, are concepts like the marketplace that we're working through now that hopefully we expect at some point in the future to bring to our customers as well. There's a whole lot more that's going on, so I'm not really fairly representing all the hard work of our employees to really try to drive innovation in the way we think about the customer experience and how we make the best use of the investments on behalf of our customers, and all customers, frankly, within our service territory. So with that, I'll pass it back to, I think, Drew.
Great. You guys, this has been fantastic. We've been getting a ton of wonderful emails, questions sent directly to us in the chat as well as in the Q&A. We have about 10 in queue right now. So, I will say, just a lot of these questions that we're getting, they're really hitting at Bronzeville and microgrid. So maybe, Joe, if you don't mind, I'm going to share the presentation with you, but can you maybe just tell us a little bit more about the details of Bronzeville? Maybe something about, why is culture and community so important to this microgrid project that's going to be going in Bronzeville?
Yeah, so a little about Bronzeville, Drew, as we started the journey into microgrid space. When you look at Chicago proper, it's a big place, and the public purpose areas we'd like to be in, Colorado O'Hare Airport or the medical district, they're big, they're massive, and load at one of those, for example, could exceed 100 megawatts. And to go build a 100 megawatt microgrid, I would argue it's perhaps a macro grid, or defeats the purpose. You've got big massive generators and centralized load, which is what you're trying to avoid. So the plan all along has been to do small microgrids that can cluster and grow, that we can scale over time. It also makes it more affordable to start out small and to grow over time. So IIT is the home, as I mentioned, to a 12 megawatt microgrid, and the plan within Bronzeville is to build about a 10 megawatt microgrid, couple the two, and then start to share and prioritize resources between microgrids. And so that's kind of the foundation, and it's grown to be a lot more. It's grown to how do we include customers in this journey. And within the microgrid, you can get into a lot of demand response and other functions, and we want to include the community and everybody within Bronzeville in that journey. So that's really kind of a summary of why we're stepping out to do it there.
I appreciate that, Joe. So, let me pivot that over to Brian Hurst. I just got a great question from Linda Rhodes, and she's actually sort of touching about that culture and community element, and she's saying, in what way primarily is our industry preparing for the dynamics of changing generations? And I think that really goes to your slide, Brian, showing the boomers, showing the millennials, showing Generation X. She's asking, are we making our approach to things like distributed energy resources, things like microgrid and other things, are we making those scalable, and are we adapting for the changing generations? Great question. Brian, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. That is a great question. I guess, from our perspective, even in the beginning slide where I talked about the Premier Customer Experience Journey, we did look early on at other utilities because, frankly, we were so far behind in terms of the service we were providing that was an appropriate place. But just as important, we were already looking to other industries in terms of how to shape the customer experience. And as we think to the question at hand, we absolutely lift our head up and look around the corner. One of the fortunate aspects of our industry is that there is a lot of benchmarking, there is a lot of sharing. But the real, I think, the real opportunity here is to not only benchmark, but as I was alluding to on the slides, is to look at other industries and what's forming and informing our customers on how the experience should be delivered from a utility perspective, so we can match up some of those new capabilities and investments we're making appropriately for all of our customer classifications. And the one thing I was probably remiss in chatting a little bit on earlier is how important it is for us to leverage these investments for our low-income customers, for things like prepaid meters and giving them the flexibility to choose different due dates with their bill. We now have the capability to start to deploy those, and it's on our roadmap to make that happen on behalf of our customers. So we have to constantly look around, Drew, and understand other industries, our peers, and then how those models in New York and some of the other jurisdictions are shaping energy policy going forward.
Brian, it's like you were reading the next question that I listed here. Again, we have dozens of questions now that folks are sending us, even more so folks. I love the energy. Keep the questions coming. Isaac, we just got a great question from, and I just want to give props to him because it was a really good question, Mike Smith. He asked, you know, with the Utility of the Future plan, was this, the nature of this from ComEd, was this influenced and did activities such as in New York, NYREV, Ontario, and other states, was that influencing your plans, or was this internally done?
So it's absolutely a combination of both. Our senior leaders were monitoring activity across the industry internally, and at the same point in time, we spent a lot of time with a number of utilities in other jurisdictions. We closely follow, works with the New York Rev. We physically have spent time with APS out in Arizona, the California utilities, PG&E and SoCal Edison, and we've had conversations with National Grid as well. So it's been the influence of internal discussion, but as well as looking at activity across the jurisdiction, that we're putting the lessons learned from all of those interactions into consideration as a part of our strategy development.
And maybe this is a question for the group, Isaac, but seriously, this pretty much knocked out about 5 or 6 different people asking this question. And I'd be happy to bring this to the whole group, but you know, a lot of these questions are driving around consumers want more control. And maybe sort of lead off with us, Isaac, about sort of, so consumers, whether they're residential or commercial, they're going to want to be more, they're going to want that more actionable information. I guess, you know, what have been some of the direct benefits customers have been seeing from the investment in the smart grid? And then how will this continue with the Utility of the Future? And then again, just for consumers and their control of what they do with their lives. Do you mind sort of kicking that off, Isaac, and sort of letting Joe answer next?
Sure. So we've done some focus groups work. We've continued to look at kind of customer intelligence across multiple classes, and, you know, predominantly our residential customers and across the board are looking at technology as being an option to do different things. And in many cases, top of mind are energy savings, the whole push for renewables and interest in the environmental consciousness. We've spent a lot of time with our residential customers, and that is top of mind. In addition to that, we know that our larger customers are going to want more changes and want to look at technology in different ways as well, whether that be purchasing the new technology or expecting increased reliability and resiliency from the utility. We're connected to all classes of our customers, and we're looking at how these changes and how their needs will evolve over time, and what's the best way to position ourselves to do that, whether it be leveraging internal skill set or partnering with different entities to pilot new ideas. But we're trying to stay in tune with those changes that our customers are looking to make and looking for us to do differently.
So, Drew, I'd like to just add on an example when you engage with the community. On the north side of Chicago, there were some abandoned elevated train tracks, and the community took action there. They created a really neat walkway, an overhead walkway, and lit it up. People are jogging, walking, kids up there above, kind of in a nice elevated platform. When we went out and talked a little about Bronzeville within the community, they said, the community said, we have one of those too. We've got a bunch of abandoned L tracks. Why not use that as a platform for solar panels? And if you think about it, it's up in the air. It doesn't, you know, cause problems on roofs. It doesn't take up potential real estate. It's a nice way for us to run cabling and conduit without digging up the ground. So it's just a neat opportunity when you engage the community. They come to you with ideas about how they want to see this played out. So I don't know if we can do that. We're very early. We've got a lot of talking, but just a great example.
Joe, just to pivot off that, I just got a great question specifically from David Akroch. He asked, are NERC SIP compliance concerns slowing down your system integration efforts? And how concerned are your customers about security issues involving their own personal data and grid reliability?
Yeah, so for the broader group, SIP is an acronym for Critical Infrastructure Protection. It's really a lot of NERC cyber work. So I wouldn't say it's slowing us down. It is intensive. We're all over it. It's a good program. So we continue to work that, and the NERC continues to introduce new modules or new programs. Cyber in general, I would tell you, because I've seen some other questions coming through here, you know, we're confident in our systems and what we've done, but cyber is something you can never rest on, nothing you can ever say you've conquered and you've arrived, because you're always trying to stay a step ahead. So a lot of this journey into microgrids and distributed generation is really a decentralization of the risk you have today. So today we've got big power plants, we've got exposed transmission, which could be vulnerable to cyber or even physical attacks. So moving all this stuff onto people's roofs or into microgrids, although as vulnerable as anything will be with cyber in the future, is a whole bunch more locations that would need to be attacked to produce the same result. So it's really about decentralizing risk.
That's a great point. Brian, I'm going to chime in with you here. And so, you know, what Joe's talking about is really hitting on some elements of sort of what started with the smart meter rollout and sort of developing this new platform. Can you sort of share some of the thinking around what this platform of the future will look like? And then within that, there's a great question from Joseph Battaglini about how are analytics creating opportunities for automated actions, you know, across the system, you know, automated actions without human involvement. So first, just tell us a little bit about this platform of the future. What, you know, give us a beachhead of what that looks like, and then also today, how is that creating opportunities for those, you know, distributed logic, remote intelligence, and situational awareness?
No, that's a great set of questions. You know, I think you know, you bring up a great point in terms of the concept of a platform. You know, I often think about, you know, our role is, you know, striking that balance between kind of prudent investments, you know, staying up with the industry and trying to stay ahead of our customers as much as possible. And, you know, you know, we think about the product we deliver, electrons, to our customer. You know, this idea of leveraging the platform, you know, kind of in my opinion and view of the world, is how do you kind of make and bring kind of the right products and services to the customer. So it's like this connected home concept, right? We're the connective tissue, if you will. We have the relationship with the customer. We have an eye towards, you know, this innovation pipeline, various companies that may come through the Energy Foundry or our Smart Grid Exchange. How do we vet those types of solutions appropriately and determine which ones are the right ones to build on top of the smart meter platform, if you will? The example I gave earlier around low income, you know, historically, without smart meter investments, to make a change around the billing due date would have been a significant undertaking within the billing system. Today, with our smart meter environment and our meter data management system, which has all that data, it's easier to look at things like changing the billing cycle. So it opens up a whole new set of programs we can bring on behalf of all of our customers to them on this platform concept, and then really allow us to think more future-oriented around this innovation pipeline and which ones can we build on top of that. You know, it's the work that our team and our dynamic pricing and demand response team is doing around how do you pair up with an energy efficiency group and how do you leverage this new smart connected world as a home to bring new products and services. And then the last point around analytics, you're right. I mean, Joe, I think, teed it up very well earlier with as we not only bring intelligence to the grid and we're bringing intelligence via the smart meter at the endpoint, we have a whole lot more data than we have in the past. So, you know, historically, we have been using the data for things like theft detection and other capabilities within revenue management. In the future, in today's world, we often have to do that on not necessarily as a quick of a refresh process as we'd like. We kind of put a request in and it happens. But in tomorrow's world with analytics, there's no reason why we can't build those capabilities and refresh that data so that our folks have it on an ongoing basis. And what I really get excited about are some of the things that we're looking to do down the road is to really, as I mentioned, kind of get to the view of our individual customers. That's a good North Star vision, but to understand the behaviors of our customers and understand what those tipping points are when they try to give us a call around a high bill. So what can we do to get ahead of that? And there's a whole bunch of our customers every year that we know historically will probably go on a budget billing plan. With the use of analytics, why can't we get ahead of those customers, automatically enroll them? We have to work through the details of this, but automatically enroll them because we know it's going to be a painful call for them to pick up that phone. We know they're going to need help. And how can we be much more predictive, if you will, on supporting all of our customers' needs, and particularly some of our challenged customers ahead of time, and get ahead of the equation and give them more information to support their use. So on the analytics front, I look at it in two pieces. One is how do we optimize today's utility, and how do we use the analytics to build ourselves for the future.
Got it. So it's so interesting. So a lot of what you're saying, Brian, a lot of what I'm hearing from Isaac and Joseph is that, you know, you guys don't have a 1,000,000% clear idea of what it looks like at 2025, but that you guys are on a real migration path. You know, how, I guess within that, and this is maybe a rhetorical question for the three of you, but how does, you know, really influential utility like ComEd, how do you see the balance between, you know, the design and development and implementation of sort of rate-based projects and those kind of initiatives and products and services led by technology companies that are seeking to bring more products and services? How does the ComEd strike the balance between, you know, rate-based projects and, hey, this is a real product or a meaningful service that, you know, a large segment of our society needs or wants or ensures public health, safety, and welfare? Where is that balance? Is there a clear red line, or is it being developed also just like these solutions are being developed? And that's open to all three of you.
Yeah, Drew, Joe, I'll take that. You know, it's a journey. I think we're all trying to figure it out. I think there's room for lots of people in the space. We've just, you know, we've staked our claim, at least with the rate basing of the microgrids around the big public purpose assets. We just think we're uniquely positioned there as great asset managers, and we think lots of customers benefit from those. If someone's going to propose a microgrid in an industrial park for a Costco or what have you, you know, that's wide open for them. We don't plan to be there. I think we're kind of figuring it out. I would tell you that one slide that had a lot of the items we're working on, we're trying to get experiences in lots of different areas. I'd stop short of calling them bets. We're trying to learn where there might be opportunity for us. I don't think everyone will pan out, which to your point about the future is unclear, I couldn't agree more. But you know, we think there's no better way to learn about the benefits for our customers and where that future may be than actually deploying some of the technologies, learning and measuring. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Joe, while I still have you answering this, you know, maybe, and I just put the slide up for putting it all together, can you just sort of share while you're still on the phone, tell us a little bit more about the SHINES grant? This is a big deal. So sort of help folks see a vision of what that success looks like. Yeah, and so what are some sort of timelines or sort of goals maybe a year out? You know, what would be a vision of what you guys are, where you guys are maybe 2 years from now? Where do you anticipate being?
Right. So the SHINES is an acronym I can barely remember. I know it's sustainable, holistic, and I get about that far. And what Sunshot and the DOE are looking to do is a few things. They're trying to lower the LCOE, levelized cost of energy for solar, to 14 cents. They want to make it more competitive. And so that's one goal. And the other goal is they're trying to learn about how you can enable deep penetration of renewables. Solar can cause us problems as grid operators where the one-way grid starts or operate two ways. So they want to see 50% penetration of solar and how you can manage that. And what we're doing is integrating storage in an attempt to try to drive that LCOE down by stacking benefits. There's things batteries can do that other items can't. You know, they can play in lots of different capabilities. We don't plan to be in stuff, I would say, like frequency regulation. That's not for us. But we can model where that might be, and then there's an opportunity to bring others in that can can use the battery there and perhaps share some capabilities. So when you start to stack these capabilities, you start to create new value. As far as the timeline, about the first year or so is going to be engineering. There's some complex algorithms that go into this. When I say algorithms, items like the controller starting to factor in weather forecasts and know what the sun forecast might be tomorrow, and to make decisions if the battery's charging or discharging, to factor in economics. So it's really an optimization algorithm. About the first year or so we'll go into the engineering, the development of the algorithms, the control schemes, and after that, the next year we're starting to move into more infrastructure, and we'll have, we believe, resolution on our legislation to know exactly the size of what it is we're building at that point.
Boy, Joseph, I had a great question lined up as the last question, but I just got a wonderful question through the queue that I really want all three of you to touch on and consider this a closing. And after having worked with ComEd and a lot of other utilities around the country, this one touches close to home, especially having been a utility staffer. So the question was, you may be in agreement in where and how you want to evolve your utility, but you'll also need culture change within the utility, which isn't always easy in a company like a utility. How is this issue of internal culture change being thought through and acted upon at ComEd?
Yeah, no, that's great. When you've got a 100-year-old company, you've got definitely a lot of tried and true practices and a lot of silos. So we're attempting to break through by really driving towards innovation is one of the priorities. We've set up innovation ambassadors in every area of the company, and we're trying to get people in that game. We've got innovation seminars and people invited to places. So we're trying to move the old utility company to from the engineers that designed the system the way they did to ones that are looking for new solutions and trying to incorporate a lot of these new tools into their toolkit. So it's a journey. It's opening eyes. I'm trying to think of some of the newer innovations we have. I'm drawing blank right now, but maybe on another call or maybe at ETS, Drew, we can start to share those with you.
Yeah, Drew, and this is Brian. I mean, the one thing I would add to that is this is where at least we have the advantage of the scale of our sister utilities. This is not a unique issue for just us, right? We're working very closely with PECO and BGE to understand what that workforce of the future looks like. How do millennials, for example, think about their job and what's important to them, right? There's a whole different set of issues. A lot of it has to do with having more flexibility in where I work, and also the focus around the type of work I'm doing, as Joe mentioned, in this innovative concept here, and then also kind of the societal impact aspect with the millennials. So we have to understand how the workforce is evolving and changing and building that in. We're not unique in that regard. And then I think from the example of the culture perspective, we think about the customer journeys I mentioned earlier. We go back to the kind of one of those core basic principles about the fact that we want to make sure that we treat every customer experience and every customer interaction as if it would be treated upon us, so to speak, right? So it goes back to starting with
the golden rule. You're talking about kindergarten.
Yes, I am. Good old-fashioned golden rule. That's why we got to kind of keep it simple, right? But that, it goes back to some of these early cultural shifts, and a lot of that has to do, with Ann and our senior leadership team, really in getting back out in front of our workforce, being in the field, being visible, hearing some of their concerns and how we need to continue to shape the organization to support their needs in the long term.
Isaac, I want to give you a chance to close this out, and I just want to sort of pinpoint something about this, which is that, at the end of the day, it really strikes me that if you do handle the golden rule as the focus of a utility, your safety, your MAFI, your CAIDI, your customer satisfaction numbers are going to improve because you are so customer-centric. But tell us about how that culture shift happens in a place like ComEd over the last 4 years.
So I'll tell you that I'll try to fill in the gaps that Joe and Brian didn't touch on. They did a great job. I think it starts with our senior leadership team and being extremely visible and transparent to the workforce. So Ann and the rest of us have gone out and made deliberate efforts to have employee road shows we're engaging our employees on the broader strategy and the way we're thinking longer term. We've also included and encouraged our employees closer to the work out in the field to contribute to developing our strategy. We have a program called On the Ground Intelligence, but it's an internet-based approach that employees, as they're out in the field and talking with customers, if they are hearing things that customers are going to want differently, different expectations, that they help to shape and guide decisions that are made around our utility of future strategy, they're encouraged to submit those ideas online. So it's a holistic approach. The top leadership team is out visible with the employees are engaged with our customers, and there's a combination of all of those things that offer inputs into strategy development.
Fantastic. I'll tell you, we're about 5-10 minutes over on this webinar. We still have over 215 people registered. I think we could go for another 30 minutes, but we have a hard stop, everyone. I apologize for all the attendees that we weren't able to answer your questions. If you want to email me at andrew.johnston@zprime.com, I will personally see to getting answers for as many of these questions as I can. Just for everyone to remember, on Friday or Monday, we are going to have the webinar up on etsinsights.com. You'll be able to download it. You'll also be able to download the slides. And for anyone that wasn't here at the beginning of the call, this has been ComEd sharing about, essentially laying the groundwork for the utility of the future. And all of this is going to be shared, and more insights going to be offered at ets16.com, March 29th to 31st, being held in Austin, Texas, with utility, C-suite, and thought leaders from around the world sharing how to transform the chaos. And, again, Isaac, Brian, Joe, this has been phenomenal. I love the questions you guys got. I love the input you guys were able to share. Thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone, have a wonderful day.